Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks in another match of Beyond All Reason. Today we're taking a look at a best of 3 that was played right here. Gosh, and what is this map's called? Death Valley version 1.0.1. I should know that. I've been to Death Valley plenty of times. Death Valley here, a perfect map for a little bit of a 2v2. Apparently what we're going to be watching here today is some 20-ish open skill heroes go up against each other in a best of 3 series. Now, I was excited to cast this series because we've certainly seen some cool tournament play recently, but that Swiss-style tournament kind of, well, it's 1v1s for most of it, and then you get a best of 3, and then you get a best of 5, so it really escalates quickly. That's kind of cool to get a couple of commanders getting together and just playing a little tournament style outside of all that. But also, all 3 of the matches today, or all the best of 3 matches today, are going to be on the Death Valley map, right? So we're not switching the map in between, and that's a critical distinction. We'll get into that here in just a second. Potato Bar Illuminator, the red team commander here, going to be playing right alongside Spud's Strife. We'll call this the Potatoes team, as the yellow and red commander both start up their labs right here. It's going to be an Armada commander going into Armada bots and a Cortex commander going into Cortex vehicles. On the other side of the map, the blue commander, a Cortex commander, goes by the name of Fader from the Pew clan. Apparently going to be going into Cortex vehicles here. And up on the front lines here, a Cortex commander who has yet to put down a tech structure, but I imagine we'll be choosing between bots or vehicles, I suppose. I mean, well, we might see some vehicle or some some naval units here. That'd be quite strange to go for a naval lab, but I suppose it's possible. A very late start right here from Stellus. I wonder if our plan is just to feed this energy back to the commander behind. Maybe hope to help power out a couple of those vehicles here in the early game. Not the end of the world. Certainly not a bad strategy. Yeah, there's a lot of donations going on. Interesting. Okay, so Stellus and Fate are working together here to just pump out units from that vehicle lab rather than go ahead and go for multiple labs here. Technically speaking, that is more efficient because you're only putting down the 720 metal for the vehicle plant and not the extra 600 or so for the bot lab here. It means technically the blue team has an extra 600 or so metal that they could put out on the field right now. What it means is we can go straight up to medium tanks, so that's quite nice. Yeah, Fate are going to be pretty comfortable using these medium tanks for a little bit of defense here until they ball up enough that you can go for an aggressive push. It is counteracted somewhat, though, by the fact that if you lose those medium tanks, say to a D-gun, you're throwing away tons and tons of metal here. Now, hopefully we see a rapid expansion as well. Sending out one of these cons to expand all over the place wouldn't be the worst idea. In fact, just queuing this one to go grab all these metal extractors wouldn't be terrible. Looks like this one will be building a whole bunch of wind turbines. Either way that you're going to do it here, yeah, looks like we have another constructor coming up. Eventually managing to grab some sort of control over those mechs is going to be really, really important. Brute's trying to keep up with the incisors, though. Those light tanks are very, very quick. They will outmaneuver the medium tanks here. And especially with those medium tanks forced to kite against them, they're not really going to be able to catch up. What's the speed difference here? The incisor looking at a solid 86 speed versus the Brute's 73, so close match, but the incisor does take it ever so slightly. Brute still here to defend, and more than enough to thwart those. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot here. Okay, so this is an interesting playstyle from the blue team right now. Going ahead and going for some very, very aggressive vehicle openings right here, but it seems like it's paying out phenomenally. Illuminator marching forward with the commander right now, and we're headed towards that issue of if these tanks get degunned, if we lose this 400 or so metal that we've got on the field. Oh, nice degun right there from Stellus. Catches one of those incisor over here. If we lose these tanks, oh no. Nice micro right there from the blue commander. If we lose these tanks, that's almost making up the difference that we're essentially gaining as an advantage here. The other thing, of course, is that this is a slower expansion, so the blue team is expanding quite a bit slower here. No construction power in the backline so far. Makes this a little difficult. Illuminator in a little bit of trouble. Yeah. The commander down to 80% HP and still continuing to fall. LLT comes up here at the very least, so those medium tanks have a target to fire at when the commander is not within line of sight. Already the medium tanks are coming across, though. Yeah, Illuminator wants those D-guns. Misses the first one right there, but it does scare off those tanks. Strife moving forward here as well, and obviously closing the gap somewhat. So one of the things is that vehicles have a really hard time traversing over here. In fact, let's go ahead and hit, oh gosh, I hope it's, yeah, this key. Okay, so vehicles cannot traverse this purple section over here, which means that only bots can harass on this right-hand side. It means that these tanks are only going to be able to attack the red team from this mid-section here. Illuminator within range, massive D-gun right there, cleaves apart 3 of those medium tanks. Will we get another? Does not look like it. That commander is so low HP, though. 18% HP left on this commander right now. Oh, don't tell me we're going to snipe the commander and it kills the other one. If we chain react the commanders right here, that would be a nightmare. What an unfortunate way to lose a 2v2. Bringing down one of your commanders and the explosion of the other. virtually at all times, everywhere, all at once. You should never put your commanders right next to each other in a 2 versus 2. It's just a bad omen. You're never going to end up happy with the way that that turns out. Stella's moving around to grab these mexes instead of a constructor here from Fader. I suppose I don't mind it because this commander is essentially just a glorified construction bot at this point, just going around building a little economy, building all this other stuff. And you can see with the sliders turned down, that's very common in these games. With the sliders turned down, it does mean that all those resources are just funneling back into the blue economy. Is this efficient though? I mean, at 4 wind to 14 wind, yeah, wind speed is nice, but it's not perfect. Those solar panels definitely putting in some serious work right now. All of those extra wind turbines definitely helping out a lot though. So what it really comes down to is it worth it to put this many extra units on the field? Well, if you can manage to snag a commander kill or even just thwart some of these incisors, I think it's probably well worth it. LLT is having a field day. As the width between these, or as the angle between these increases, the LLTs are going to proc more and more of that, or going to trigger, pardon me, more and more of that flanking bonus. And so, indeed, 2 of those incisors will actually go down right there. I think if we had been a little clever about the way that we sent these incisors in, maybe it would have only been 1. Not the end of the world, though. And incisors still looking for value. They're going to find the metal extractors over here. Stella's did go for naked expansions on these metal extractors. Means the incisor are going to be right on time to blast those down. Don't think these mexes have been up long enough in order to actually pay for themselves. Means that the green commander is going to have to go rebuild those and sink the metal cost. Not that it really matters. The green economy is perfectly fine because all of it's just being overflowed to blue, who is more than happy to spend that energy, spend that metal, pump out as many of these medium tanks as possible. And we are getting to a reasonable ball right here. Yeah, we've hit that kind of critical mass of tanks where suddenly any engagement you take is just going to be a little bit inefficient. There they go, blasting away at infantry units, blasting away at LLTs, and most importantly, blasting away at that commander, leaving it at 38% HP. Very, very low, very risky. Catching the Wolverine there, quite nice as well. Strife in a bad way. 8% HP left on that commander, down to just 7 now. The pawns trying to run forward and get on top of this as much as possible. Wouldn't mind a single pounder tank here for a retreat in case there's a big swell of those T1 trash units. You can always retreat back to a pounder tank and use it to cover you. Pounder tank's not going to do much against your own medium tanks, but going to do phenomenally against, say, for instance, a bunch of infantry units. The red commander without energy. Oh no, the red commander completely without energy, has no power for a D-gun right there, forced to retreat despite having the opportunity to kill about 5 medium tanks right there with a little bit of a run by. Strife in trouble. 1% HP, 1% HP on that commander, my goodness, just 80 total. We're going for the kill here. Medium tanks roll it in. And I think Pew has found the golden ticket. Wow, a T2 lab already planned right here from the red commander. Very ambitious. I don't think it's going to be well worth it. And just like that, the red base has been ravaged. Illuminator in a lot of trouble right now. Medium tanks continuing to stroll by. Boom goes the yellow commander. The red commander, the last one standing. With the mexes destroyed, with the labs depowered, Pew manages to take the very first game. What an exciting start to this 2v2 best of 3 series. Very excited to see where this goes. Our second game, same colors in the same positions here. Let's see what the red team has to do to respond to that rapid medium tank rush. It's a very committed strategy, obviously, because with only 1 lab out, it also means your tech isn't very diverse. You can imagine there are strategies that do counteract exactly that kind of play. Will the blue team take advantage of it? One that I can imagine is going for early shuriken. If one of these commanders went for early shuriken and the other went for, say, tick pawn spam, you would essentially force a situation where those medium tanks could never take an efficient trade because they'd constantly be paralyzed and you run out of metal really, really quickly. Keep in mind, of course, that it's double the metal because one of these commanders isn't producing anything, so it's 2 economies you're effectively going up against, but shuriken can make a double or nothing. Will double turn into nothing, ravaging those economies, certainly. Illuminator going to be going into Armada bots once more, and Strife also going to be going into Cortex bots, or Cortex vehicles once more. Looks like we're essentially queuing up the exact same maneuver here from the blue team. An interesting choice not to mix it up. I can't help but wonder in a situation like this if changing things up might, be for the better. Maybe working out at least a different strategy here. In a best of 3 series, it does mean that this is essentially match point, with Pew needing 1 point on the board in order to win this thing, and Potato Team needing to go for gold here, trying to come back into this game with a clean sweep roundabout victory. Gonna need to bring it back in a big way. 2 points back to back. Illuminator going for a construction bot right here, but running very low on energy. Despite those wind turbines actually churning out energy quite nicely here at 14 energy speed per second. Very, very efficient. Very low tidal speed, so not really worth investing in those on this map. certainly going to be mostly beneficial to just go ahead and try and get aggressive. Because you have the bots, at the very least, you can take possession of the map really easily. So what I'd love to see is these constructors just sent out willy-nilly, right? Just send one of these out to the right-hand side and just have it go build a bunch of metal extractors. Have one sent up north, go build mexes up there too. Force the enemy to spread their forces all over the map and never let those medium tanks consolidate. And you're going to be in a pretty good spot right here. Now, Stella's learning about the harassment from the last game and setting up a LLT in base here. Obviously not going to protect this northern flank, this northeastern flank over here where the wind turbines block from the LLT being able to see over there, but obviously it's going to be tricky to get a unit in there anyways. Yeah, it kind of goes up against the water. We'll see if a tick can do it. It looks like we are looking for an opportunity path here. We do have a opportunity path on the northern side. Nicely done. Excellent tick harassment here from the red commander. One tick manages to find a metal extractor that's exposed. Another one runs into the backline right here. Of course, this tick can also blast those solar panels. It doesn't need to kill the solar panels to be effective. It just needs to damage them for them to close up, and then suddenly that's 150 metal right there that's not doing anything. Very, very dangerous. If we can kill the metal extractor, or pardon me, the solar panel right here, that would be premier. But if not, it's really not the end of the world for the red commander, for the red commander. The constructor in a little bit of trouble here. Not the end of the world. Those ticks didn't get a very good surround, so they will be blasted down here eventually, but still some phenomenal damage. 2 metal extractors down for 2 ticks is wonderful. We did kill another one over here, I thought. Yeah, I think we killed this metal extractor over here. Or maybe it was this one. Either way, though, 2 mexes, even for 4 ticks, is still a phenomenal trade. More grunts moving forward up on the northern side. Hey, look at that. Luminator absolutely learning from the last game, realizing, hey, wait a second, I have the bot advantage, which means I have way more mobility than my opponents, means I can use these flanking paths much more effectively. Really cool to see that done here, positioning a couple of units up north. Hopefully, for the blue team's sake, we do see some radar towers going down. We do have one for the green commander over here, so at the very least going to detect anything once it gets a little bit closer to the base. But the blue commander does not have any such radar. In fact, hasn't even rebuilt the metal extractor here. More focused on building defensive forces, but you can tell the cadence has already been thrown off here. Yeah, Stella's pivoting into a bot lab right now. Yeah, so it's not exactly the same strategy. It looked very similar in the early game, but it's not exactly the same thing. Stella's now going into a bot lab and changing things up for the better, I do believe. Incisors, pretty good. They're definitely sufficient to defend against these pawns. That one will stop the mechs coming up right there. Very annoying because, of course, you have to re-queue that, which is always a pain. Yep, there you go. You can see Fader re-queuing that metal extractor and the build power and all the rest of it. And immediately we fall into this lull. So, to remind you, in comparison to that first game, medium tanks were already getting aggressive. Oh, and that seals the deal right there. Spitfire, or pardon me, not Spitfire, Strife. Have I been calling him Spitfire this whole time? My goodness. Anyway. Strife here. I do apologize if that's the case, Mr. Strife. Strife here from the Spuds. Going to be setting up that commander with a killer D-gun right there, cementing the lead right here that you get from playing bots versus vehicles. The positional lead that you get from bots versus vehicles is really, really difficult to quantify, and it is very map dependent. But essentially, it comes down to being able to do little run-bys like this. It comes down to being able to contest multiple parts of the map a lot more smoothly. It's a lot of little things that all add up over time. There we go. We do see a little bit of aggression over here, though. So at the very least, a couple of grunts from Stellas are now moving across the map. Gonna try and find some openings over here on the right-hand side. They are spotted by a incisor that was sent out by Strife. And it does mean that Illuminator has the forewarning to go ahead and send a couple of pawns over here. So some nice teamwork, a little bit of scouting right there, doing a wonderful job of denying a little bit of that aggression over here. A pawn running forward, and it will find some constructors. These constructors going for exploiters here. Yeah, the blue team feeling a lot more defensive right now. On one hand, that defensive mindset definitely buys you a lot, right? You can you can expand a little bit more concretely. You're not so explosive. You're setting yourself up for a longer term game. However, it does mean you're going to be a little bit slower. And with the red team probably prepared for a fast-paced game, slowing your playstyle down any can be very dangerous. As we've already seen with those ticks running through the backlane, running into those backline metal extractors, managing to kill those mexes is a really, really painful opportunity that the red team is happy to take advantage of. It makes me wonder what we're going to see in retaliation right now from the blue team. While there's a lull in the action as the medium tanks sit in the front line, I want to take a look at the statistics page. If we take a look at the metal produced, you can see, oh wow, almost exactly neck and neck here, actually. I was expecting a slightly bigger difference right here between these two, but actually fairly even. As far as damage dealt goes, the red team is quite a bit ahead. Nearly 1,000 damage extra dealt. Units produced, also quite a bit higher as well. Again, it's the difference, whoop, not that page. It's the difference that the bot lab gets you, right? You can put a lot more forces on the field. Each individual unit not as efficient as a vehicle would be, but the fact that they can take up so much space on the playing field can really, really help you in the late game. I love this expansion we're going for right here. It's very, very comfortable for the Red Commander. Just going for Wind Turbine expansion, which is relatively cheap, relatively easy for construction turrets to assist with. And of course, it allows you to kind of easily scale your economy by just setting up these massive fields of wind turbines. A little bit risky if bombing raids should come across, especially if you're going to build them 3 wide like this. 3 wide wind turbines, 3 by X wind turbines. So you can see this is like 3 by 6 wind turbines. 3 by X wind turbines will chain react with each other if 3 of them get exploded. So say, for instance, 3 of these on the edge got exploded. They would all chain react and you'd lose every wind turbine here. Anyways, aside from the wind turbine math, how about a little bit of action? The tank's finally diving on top of some of these units right here as Potato Bar Illuminator is trying to defend this little choke point over here. And this is a fabulous choke point to defend. Essentially the only exposed angle right now for the red team. Yeah, oh, this is a beautiful choke point. Oh, I hadn't even noticed this too, but this is a great move from Illuminator because we're going for vehicles only. It means that the only units that can harass on this right-hand side are going to be the bots. So by positioning the army over here, it negates the vehicle attack, and it means that the Red Commander can lock every one of these metal extractors down very easily with essentially no contest, and then, of course, spiral the economy like mad. These pawns taking a slightly unfavorable trade right here. The concave well in favor of the blue commander. Medium tanks just going for a little bit of a run by. Where are they going to go, though? I mean, they can go to the back line. They can kill a couple of mexes here, and that's definitely annoying for the red commander. Oh, no, the energy stall is devastating, though. Yeah, you can see Strife trying to send energy Illuminator without the energy to blow that commander, or to degun down those tanks. I do want to say that commander does go up in heaven. Go up to heaven. Bot heaven. Do bots go to heaven? I feel like we need a movie short series about that, right? Do all bots go to heaven? Lying face down in the dirt there, I'm certain the Illuminator is going to be thinking about it, but maybe we're going to send some Necrobots over there to resurrect the commander, pull him out of the depths of heaven, and bring him back to the battlefields right here. Oh, what a cheeky play. Bring him back to the battlefields of the desert map that we find ourselves on, that I'm forgetting the name of once more. Death Valley, that's right. Amphibious tanks, that's what we're seeing over here on the right-hand side. I should probably call out and point out that Strife is going for a couple of those cheeky underwater tanks. And my goodness, what damage they might be able to find here. A completely exposed economy. Stella's actually not going for any more unit production. Yeah, we've taken down the bot lab and we've just gone ahead and eaten it up and sent all the metal back to the blue commander. So we did pivot eventually into sort of the same thing that we saw last time, except we just lost about as much metal as the commander's wreckage in medium tanks on the front here. Pawn's not microed with 100% efficiency. If we get a slightly larger surround, it minimizes the AoE effect on those medium tanks, and it can make your units last a little bit longer, but all said and done, bringing down those tanks and preventing that snowball, more importantly than anything else, is going to be key here. Here come those amphibious tanks, though. Yeah, they're pretty tough. Garpikes with a large burst of damage. They essentially do all their damage in a big upfront blast. Having a hard time here, though. Getting some wind turbines, it's nice. It's not the end of the world. Pulling Stellas away from building that economy is really the major damage here. But also handing over all that metal hurts quite a bit here as well. I wonder if there's a strategic middle ground there where you actually throw the you throw the tanks into the commander so that they think they should degun them, and then rather than give them the wreckage, they just degun down those tanks before they have an opportunity. Maybe I'm overthinking things here. Again, it's as if you were playing this game via a spreadsheet, right? There's a difference between what goes on in the calculations and the spreadsheets and the numbers and the math versus what you can actually do on the field, and sometimes they just don't align perfectly. Actually, in a lot of situations, they don't align perfectly. My goodness, the pounder spam. Mass pounder here to just beat back the enemy one blast at a time here. The impulse is unbelievable on those pounder tanks, and so it means that should the medium tanks take one roll too far forward, they would, well, suffer the wrath of several mighty cannon, 9 or so riot tanks, and some more on the way. One composition that my eyes have been open to is the riot tank Wolverine. A very potent combo because the front line of Pounder is incredibly difficult to justify pushing into. It's an extreme expense to push into a bunch of Pounder tanks because of exactly that. 1 or 2 of your tanks are guaranteed to get caught, and then you're always going to lose a few of them. And then the Wolverines, of course, for long-range fire support to push the line backwards. Gives you a lot of very, very high-octane firepower. Rocket bots here firing away. A little more underwhelming than those riot tanks are, maybe. Riot tanks also spread out Ugh, or the opposite of that, actually. Not spread out at all. Is the game sound really low? No, it's perfectly fine. It's just my headphones. What I actually hear is not what you guys hear. Fun fact. Maybe I should change that, huh? Maybe that would be wise. Maybe I should change that. Maybe I wouldn't have so many audio issues. What a reclaim field here. Nice move from Stellas, actually sending out a couple of res bots right here to eat up a bunch of those medium tank wreckages. Incisors, medium tanks, all the rest of it was left out here. A bunch of them going to be blasted down right now from rocket bots, though, and I love to see it. The red team proactive in denying that wreckage to anybody else. Stripes Commander here eating up some of that wreckage as well as res bots, putting back together that red commander. Nicely done. So in an 8v8, it's rare that you would resurrect a commander, right? There's not really much of a reason to keep it alive. However, in a 2v2, where you suddenly are put on your match point very last leg, the final commander here for the red team up and standing, yeah, resurrecting this commander certainly feels quite a bit more beneficial, huh? I would say. Mass exploiter up here on the northern side. It's going to take a whole lot longer to build up these exploiters, but it does mean that it's also going to take quite a lot longer to kill those exploiters. So ultimately the trade-off there being that you're going to have an almost guaranteedly efficient trade no matter what unit decides to push in there. Medium tanks being one of the few that I could imagine might get a slightly more efficient trade against those exploiters, just because they have so much health, those medium tanks, I mean. Exploiters with quite a lot of health too, actually. Illuminator's commander back up on its feet, getting a little bit of a back massage from these Lazarus, just patching up the commander. Here you go. Pat, pat, pat. The commander folding its metal back into shape, reassessing its bones as if it had a healing factor. And I guess commanders do have a little bit of a healing factor, don't they? The undead commanders, able to resurrect from the grave. Sounds more brutal than it is, considering this is all just machinery. Rocketeer is looking for value. Whoa, mass bomber run. Just like that, a whole contingent of bombers flies directly into the base of Stellas. What a beautiful bombing run right there, all converging on top of the metal extractors and the build power over here of the blue commander as well. Bombing run pops the build power, and now suddenly there's nothing left to produce units. My goodness. With the blue commander out on the front line, the only option here for the blue commander to really easily put up anti-air defenses, the lab goes down, and just like that, the airplay is tremendous. Well, I was just wondering what the play was in the backline here. So focused on those medium tanks, I didn't even realize that there was a imminent commander bomb over here, an imminent commander snipe happening. Anti-air turrets going down as well. Wind turbines in so much trouble, and with the build power out of here, suddenly Stellas and Fader, the Pew clan, in a really tricky situation. Wind turbines popping left, right, and center. Need to see these bombers microed ever so slightly harder. Wouldn't mind seeing these Rocketeers handed over to the yellow commander. Since it's just one, whoa, a nice snipe right there from the pounder tank. Manages to get that blue commander. Since it's just 1 versus 1 on the front line here, I really wouldn't mind seeing all of this army handed over to one commander while the bombers continue their focus on these other units. Discovering that these are exploiters here is a little bit disheartening. It just means we need to target these bombers on the mexes rather than spreading half of them, kind of across nowhere, and the other half sort of also across nowhere. But there we go, though. I mean, slowly but steadily bombing down these little metal exploiter points. Yep, you've been caught. Once you're caught by the pounder, there's virtually no escape. They impulse you to death, and there's nothing else you can do about it. Those resbots have, looks like, long since been sniped here, but we do have T2 well underway. Nicely done from the red team with a massive economic snipe right here. You can see the economy of the blue team is crumbled. Metal extractors have been sniped right here. Bombers eventually blasted out of the sky, mostly by LLTs on these exploiters, which is interesting enough. But now with the T2 on the field, absolutely no chance for the blue team to make their way back into this game. At 36 metal per second, going up against 50-ish metal, 56-ish metal per second. Just like that, the red team has pulled into a massive, massive lead. Actually having a hard time spending their metal right now, yeah. Everybody kind of full on the red team as we do get some of these T2 mexes up and running. Looks like a T2 con is going to be handed out, but honestly, I think these T2 hounds are going to be more than sufficient to start blasting through the defenses here, and the blue team certainly knows it. Regardless, mexes will be built on the backline here. The blue commander has been reclaimed right now, so it will not find its feet once more. Constructor is stopped on the northern side. Those mexes going to be quite good against all these pounders, of course. Pounder's not really a siege vehicle. But for what it's worth, nothing in this game is going to really compare to the power of the Hound that now strafes across the battlefield. Hound's certainly going to be more than sufficient to deal with these. You can see vastly outranging the exploiters, as long as they don't actually step within range. And I have a feeling we are. It's not going to matter, though. Yeah, more than efficient enough to blast these down before the exploiters can actually find much value. And those Hounds pop those exploiters like it's nothing. 1 or 2 volleys later, and those exploiters go down, crippling the economy right here of the green commander. And already the blue commander has been ravaged by that bombing run. The Resbot's unable to find much value back here as everything has been devastated. And with those Hounds pulling apart the metal, I think it's definitely a sealed deal. Stelis with the T2 up and running. We are going for some of those T2 bots. A couple of Sheldon out so far. I think the red team a little bit more cautious than they need to be here. Maybe a little bit unsure if there's some sort of backup play here, not realizing how massive of a lead that they actually had. All of this essentially chalks up to those medium tanks that were lost in the early game. When that commander died and took down, I want to say it was almost 8, maybe 10 medium tanks that fell when that commander exploded. That's a ton of metal. Oh, nice self-D right there from the Fiend. Accidentally self-D'ing the one in base. Oh, I do that all the time. You select all of your Fiends accidentally instead of just the one that you want to self-D, and then you accidentally blow up a chain of Fiends all the way back to your main base. But there we go. The Pew team taps out of this game, meaning it's 1 point apiece on the board as we head on in to game number 3. Go ahead and take a look at these graphs real quick. Game number 3. So after that last match, it does make me wonder if we're going to see any great divergence of strategy here. The blue team trying to do the same thing in a little bit of a different way, and it does look like their plans have ever so slightly changed here. I do appreciate, by the way, that these commanders are keeping everything in the same positions here. Sometimes when I've casted these matches, the colors swap, right? So then one team will become the blue that was in the last match, the red. Keeping it very easy for me to cast this. Very appreciative of that, of course. Not something you really think about as a player, but makes my night very, very easy. Anywho, Luminator and Strife going to be fighting on the southern side. The Potato team, Spuds and Potato Bar, going up against Pew, Fader, and Pew Stelis up here on the northern side. Cortex vehicles and Armada bots, and it looks like this time, no more of those eco shenanigans here for the blue team. They're going to be going straight into a bot lab and a vehicle lab here, so both labs simultaneously. Fader very fond of this one mech start here. I don't think I like it. Yeah, you do have to walk a little to get that second mech's up and running, but you're so low on metal by the time that you get it up and running. I just don't think I appreciate it very much. We'll have to see how effective it is this game. It certainly seems like that last game, when the metal runs out, suddenly you wish that you had any amount extra. Energy still being sent over, by the way, from Stelis to Fader. Nice bit of teamwork right there from the green commander. Makes for a tricky situation, though, when suddenly, yeah, you're out of energy, and now you want to produce things, right? Now, it's still an Armada bot lab here for Luminator, and similarly, a Cortex vehicle lab here for Strife. So, points on the board for consistency. Oh, these wind turbines, they make me so sketched out. This looks like a blueprint right here. I have to imagine this is a blueprint from the yellow commander. I wonder if that's just within range of that construction turret right there. That might be really well calculated from the yellow commander. If so, that's really nice. That's a great use case for the blueprints. A couple of ticks heading across the map, and it looks like indeed the blue team has learned their lesson about going for those medium tanks early on when they cannot defend against those medium tanks. So, or when they can't defend against those ticks, rather. An excellent defense right there as 2 of the 3 ticks are blasted down. One of the ticks does run northward here to try and take advantage of that northern lane where it's going to try and slip through the defenses into the back line of Fader, who is keeping the commander closer to home this time. We do have an incisor headed up north there to intercept, and I think that's a beautiful read, yeah. The blue commander realizing, hey, this is exactly what they did last game. I may as well adapt, overcome, and improvise my way out of this situation. Try and find a little bit more value here. Ticks coming across the map from Stelis, trying to get some aggression in as well. And I do like to see it. Whoa, a little bit of a... Was that a tick in the back line? No, a tick would have left a wreckage. I think there was a self-D on accident. I think Luminator accidentally self-destructed a mechs over here. Not sure how that happened, but anyways, the red commander accidentally denying themselves an extra 1.9 metal per second. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Ticks finally making it around over here. Not going to find anything quite yet. Not so bold as to send a constructor all alone over to the right-hand side. Although it is what I would have done, yeah. Yellow commander so bold, though, to send that constructor out. And those incisors, without really much of a counter here, are going to have a field day, stripping that construction vehicle apart. Strife's commander moving forward right here. Will we D-gun, or will we just blast him down with lasers? We'll go for a D-gun right there. Sure, why not? Only a couple hundred metal for those. It's, yeah, oh, well, okay. About 240 metal for both of those incisors. Maybe it would have been worth it, as now the ticks get into the back line. The incisors were a distraction. The oldest magician's trick in the book. misdirection with one hand while they slip a couple of ticks inside with the other. That sounds awful to say, but anyways, given the context, I think you understand what I mean, is now 3 more ticks continue towards the back line of the red commander. Pawn's in position to intercept. Well, some nice juking and jiving right there from the green commander. Does find an LLT and is forced to take evasive actions. Does snipe another mech, though, with the remaining ticks. Nicely done from the blue team. Hey, stellar aggression coming out from Stellus. Thank you. Thank you. I will be here all night, ladies and gentlemen. Stellus doing a great job. Using those ticks to find some immense value already, and then, of course, using the time that buys in order to get these mechs up and running. My goodness, we're going for 3 constructor expansion here. Needless to say, these mechs will come up extremely quickly. Usually it takes 1 constructor about 20 seconds, I want to say, to throw up a metal extractor. It might be more than that here. But with 3 of them, yeah, I mean, these are going to come up pretty quick. About 8 seconds to a metal extractor is phenomenal. And I guess it does save you time in the long run, right? The quicker those mixes come up, the more metal you're going to have, and the more metal you have, the more constructors you have, and the more constructors you have, the more economy you have, and the more economy you have, the more constructors you have. It does kind of circle back in a funny little way in this game. This game of infinite resources, not like StarCraft 2, where you kind of run out eventually. There's no benefit to building more constructors after you saturate your mineral line, whereas in this game, you can always build more constructors, and those constructors can always go build more mineral lines. It's quite nice, that. Can also be a little bit overwhelming, though, certainly. I've greeted quite a few people from the StarCraft community recently who have come over to this direction and have said, yeah, it's great, but the economy, learning how to play this kind of economy versus essentially an exponentially growing economy as opposed to a sort of draining economy, kind of a linear draining economy of StarCraft. Yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely a change of pace, and I totally understand it. Mex is going down here for the pawns. Looks like one of these pawns will catch a resbot over here. I'm not going to say that was worth it per se. We did kill a couple. We did kill most of the standing army here, actually. Oh, and this pawn with some killer micro actually going to be able to snipe another resbot here. More medium tanks, at the very least finding the base over here, but most of those were shut down along the way. And Fader will be more than happy to eat up some of that metal here. Pawn's still running around. Hey, will it snipe the metal extractor? It sure will. Nice snipe right there. All right, with that metal extractor down, I will say that that is certainly enough value. Eliminator being very quick to jump on top of these mexes. I think finding the control over this area really comfortable last game. Realizing, hey, if I can actually deny this entire area from my opponent, it felt really, really nice to just have all those resources pouring in here. And I mean, it is a lot of resources. If we just call these 2 per second, then it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20 metal per second is massive. On top of the already 15 or so that exist here, we do have a couple of mexes that need to be built here. Yeah, on top of all that, you're definitely well prepared for a T2 economy, if not, maybe thinking about a really early T3. I've seen it pulled off before. It's very risky, of course, going for that T3 off of a T2 economy or early mid-game economy, so kind of a T1, T2 split economy. Really risky to go for it, but if you pull it off and you manage to, say, get a Razorback out on the field, sometimes through some certain shenanigans on certain maps with Reclaim or maybe specifically high-value metal extractors, Rosetta comes to mind, sometimes you can get those T3 units out a lot quicker than you normally would be able to. Infantry going up against the tanks here. Actually a nice little engagement right there. Not taking much damage on the infantry units because the tanks were busy focus firing on the commander right there. Does mean that they will scuff up some of those tanks. Not really a major trade one way or another, but the blue team pivoting back to their good old. So the green commander continuing to just build wind turbines, continuing to just scale the energy production, while Fader continues to pump out metal extractors. If it ain't broke, why fix it? And there is certainly something to be said for the power of the medium tank. A hard pivot into Shuriken is, I think, what I'd like to see here. The only way that these players deal with it is by building anti-air units, so a couple of missile trucks. By the time that missile trucks roll all the way from the back line out to the front here, you're going to have well paralyzed this entire army and have more than enough time to, A, go for some killer D-guns, just like that one, or go ahead and surround them with pawns, which obviously would be the ideal situation where you can just go ahead and reclaim all that metal afterwards. Either one would be a wonderful situation here, so I'd love to see it from the yellow commander. Doesn't look like it's on the docket, though. We're just going to be fighting this battle head-on. Illuminator more than happy to invest in the eco game right here. The blue team neglecting so many resources on this side. Yeah, we need more constructors. It's hard to justify that metal expense. That is an easy 145 metal that you could be putting into another tank. But imagine how quickly these metal extractors pay for themselves. Not to mention how quickly they pay for more medium tanks. Hard to disparage the strategy that's working so effectively here, though. Certainly difficult for these blue tanks to push forward right now because the commander is in the way. But after just a couple minutes of whittling things down, cheeky little Resbot repair station over here as well is very nice to see. After a couple minutes of whittling down this commander, you do put yourself in a position where you can think about getting a little bit more aggressive. There's also a certain scale of medium tank where it doesn't even really matter about D-guns. You can take some pretty inefficient D-guns directly to the face and it still won't bring your ball down to enough that it really matters too much. The red commander sharing tons of metal to the yellow commander here, sort of copying this strategy. Now, I don't know if these commanders play against each other often, if they know each other's strategies here, but it is interesting to see that both commanders are tending towards that medium tank Cortex spam strategy is interesting. Text now coming out of a bot lab from Stellus, who does have, relatively speaking, a small economy. Yeah, I mean, actually, we can compare the economies right here on the northern side. The red team pulling in about 42-ish metal per second. The blue team pulling in only 22, right? So almost double the economy right now for the red team. Despite not having the units on the field because they've had to invest so heavily in the economy, after just a couple of minutes of, well, double the production, you're going to have double the units, and that's going to be a massive benefit right here for the red team. Strife in a lot of trouble, though. You know, we need to keep these medium tanks well occupied and not fighting the commander right now. Strife needs to back that commander out of there and get it repaired up. Looks like we will have the con start to massage that commander back to life, but certainly a couple of res bots wouldn't be the worst thing here out of the red bot lab. Are we making a transition right now? No, we are not. Okay. Red commander hitting a nasty E-stall right now. Decides to go for a couple of those solar panels with the wind speed plummeted right now. Yeah, it does mean that those solar panels are going to be very enticing. The blue tank ball is growing, though. Every tank that reinforces this, essentially, you can think of this like a flow problem, right? Man, I just finished taking a math class, very intense class, and differential equations, that sort of thing. Proper high level math, way beyond my pay grade. Gets me thinking about flow problems. What do I mean by that? I mean the amount of medium tanks you lose per second versus the amount of medium tanks you produce per second, right? So if the amount of tanks you're losing per second is greater than the amount of tanks you're producing, yellow commander goes up in smoke right there. Whoa, and that's the entire red team down. Just like that, the blue team manages to snipe the victory right here. Oh, I see what happened. I completely missed a trade in the base right there. I do apologize. The red commander traded in base, but it meant the blue tanks were able to snatch the victory. Pew taking this series in a 2-1 lead. What a wild back and forth between these 2v2s, and I'm thrilled about it. Please feel free to send me more series if you happen to play them like this. Whether they're low level or high level, I'm super excited to cast more games like this. I think this series tell a much more fun story, and I'm always excited about that kind of thing. Anyways, I sure hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next video or live stream or wherever it happens to be, and I sure hope you have a good one. Peace out, everyone.